Good morning. My name's Rustin McClure. I'm the pastor here at Faith Connection Covenant Church. I'm glad you took the time this morning to join us. And this morning, we're going to take a departure from our normal sermon series that we've been on. Remember, we've been in Luke. We've been in Luke, and we've been going from section of red to section of red. You know, the places where Jesus speaks, and paying special attention because we're disciples of Jesus. That's what we think the church is. That's what we're convinced and convicted that the church is. And part of being disciples and part of what we do is doubling down and paying attention to what Jesus is saying so that we can become more and more like him. Understanding the way he thinks, the way he interacts with people, the way he loves, the type of things in the world around him he gets riled up at or doesn't get riled up at, and letting that direct us. And next week, when we're back in person, and remember, we are going to one service next week. We're going to one service, and we're asking that everyone, please, ages 5 and up, please wear a mask. We're going to be going back to our Luke series and continuing that. But this Sunday, we're going to kind of take maybe a side step, kind of a parallel step. And so we're going to go to John, and we're going to talk in John chapter 13 over kind of a verse where Jesus says he has a new commandment to give. And I wasn't necessarily expecting to take a departure, but this week seemed like a good one in light of the fact we're not meeting in person. Normal schedules and kind of the rhythms of what we're doing were being broken up due to us not being able to meet in the building because we won't have power in the morning. But because honestly, I'm tired. I'm tired not just because, had a wedding this morning and that it was beautiful. It was wonderful to sit with people who were crying tears of joy. And then a funeral this afternoon, and then going through that. That's tiring. But I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of tired of how vicious and mean this world is right now. Maybe you're in the same boat I am, where it's starting to wear on you, where every single show you seem to watch is them tearing down someone or something, saying the president's good or the president's horrible, and tearing them down. And then you go to another side, another news station, and it's the opposite perspective, and how everyone on this side is horrible and everyone on this side is great and amazing, and there's no merging. Everything is twisted, everything is a caricature, everyone's just mean. You go on social media and it's a mistake every single time. People are just being vicious. This community that we live in, the community, I love this community, Washington. It's just devouring itself. People are up in arms about everything. And it just seemed to be intensifying. And I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of exhausted by it. And the thing that's, I guess, exhausting for me is not just that people are doing that. It's that Jesus' disciples, people who are called or who have committed their lives to following him, we're getting sucked into it too. And so, as I was just, reflecting on, spending time at a wedding today and a funeral, and especially at the wedding I talked about love, kind of read the section in Corinthians 13 about love, 13:4 through 8a, and we're probably going to read that here in a minute, but how it talks about what love is. And this verse that I'm about ready to read just kept coming to my mind, and how we as a church right now are falling short in that. And it may be time for us to take a pause and reflect and just be reminded that us being loving is a non-negotiable characteristic of us following Jesus. In fact, Jesus says this in chapter 13 of John, verse 35. Starting in verse 34, he says, "A new command I give you." Right here is Jesus speaking. He's saying, "Here is something new I want you to take and to do. This is me, your master, saying, go and do this. Love one another. Period. Love one another. Period." He then goes on to clarify that by saying, "As I have loved you, so you must love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another." Remember, this is Jesus saying this. The example he gave for love was that he got up on that cross and died for us. Before we could have done anything to earn it, to deserve it, he died for us. "By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." In fact, not only are we supposed to do it, but it is supposed to be such an overarching characteristic, such an overarching principle and idea and an aspect of our being that other people, without knowing anything else about us, will look, oh, they love. You know what? They love like Jesus. I haven't done anything to deserve it. I haven't done anything to earn it. But they'd go to the cross for me. That's powerful. But we get love messed up in this world, right? We get love messed up in this society, in our culture. We think it's a fleeting feeling. We think it's something we can fall in or out of. We think it's something in romance novels, or I don't read those obviously, or like rom-coms. You know, it's something that is butterflies and something that probably better described as infatuation. Love, from a biblical sense, is actually very different. And so, in order to kind of understand this, that our love is to reflect Christ, we need to also understand what love is, at least from a biblical understanding. So we're going to hop over to where I pointed to earlier of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, starting in verse 4, going through 8a, and we're just going to talk through that also. And you may be familiar with this verse because it's kind of the quintessential wedding verses that are read. Love is patient, love is kind, that one. But it's quintessential, and it's because it's amazing. It defines in concrete ways how we ought to love and what love is. So I'm going through this, and we're going to go through it slow and talk about how we need to do this. Love is patient. Right now, we all need a lot of patience. 2020 has not been easy, and as much as I wish this wasn't so, 2021 probably isn't going to start very easy either. We have people who are all over the map on what they're dealing with, and this is true always, but especially right now. We need to extend patience. More time and more patience for people to get on board and to get understanding than probably ever, it feels like, because the reality is there's a ton of misinformation, there's tons of mixed feelings, we're all in different situations, and patience. It's an aspect of love. It's an aspect of our characteristic as disciples of Jesus. Love is kind. A simple kindness goes a long ways when you're having a bad day. Someone that smiles, someone that stops and lets you in if traffic is busy. Waving someone on at a four-way stop when maybe you should have by all rights gone ahead. A gift, running an errand, being kind, choosing to do that for someone That's love. That's following Jesus. It talks about love does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Why are we on social media? What are we doing by constantly posting pictures and comparing ourselves to other people and the things they're doing and the things we're not doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? If it's not to boast, if it's not getting caught up in an envious cycle, if it's not us being proud about what we've done, and not proud in a good way, right? Like when you love your children and you're excited for their accomplishments and to share that with other people who also love them, not that type of proud, but the arrogant pride that comes from a place of superiority. And you're just signaling to show others how much better you are than them because that does something for you, because you haven't truly accepted that Jesus loves you without you having to do that. That's what we're talking about. It is not rude. Being rude is not following Jesus. Period. I'm not saying that at times Jesus followers don't trip up and be rude, and that washes you out of being a Christian forever. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't care who you are, what level of authority you have in this world or don't have in this world, being rude is incompatible with following Jesus. There's a lot of people that say they follow Jesus because it looks good. It signals, some of the things that Jesus signals for to the rest of the world. But looking at their actions, if they're constantly rude, if they're bragging about being rude and putting people in their place and getting one up over them, you have to question. And us as Christians, especially when we're in spaces and places where it's easier to be rude, when we have power, when we have authority over people, when we have a disconnect of distance, like over the internet, and we're being rude, we have to ask why. We have to ask what that's doing for us and why we aren't getting that from Jesus and from God instead. Love is not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not angling every single conversation, every single piece of data or information in order for your own benefit to twist it so you can get a leg up on everyone else around you. It's self-sacrificing, right? Because that's what Jesus did. That's what he did on the cross. We didn't deserve it. We don't deserve it now, but he did. He did it when we still act against him and we undermine what he teaches. He does it. He did it even though he knew we would be rude and self-seeking ourselves. But he's calling us to follow him, to do something different. It is not easily angered. How easy is it to get angered these days? Someone posts something on social media, and I don't mean to keep going back to that example, but oh my goodness, is it there? Or someone says something on TV, someone you'll never run into in life. They don't know who you are, but then you'll spend all day angry about it. Or someone who just has a different perspective and is in a different place right now says something on social media, and you just, it starts in the comments. How easily are we angered? How easily do we step away from love and start resembling something different? It keeps no records of wrong. That's forgiveness, right? Problem is when we fall out of the habit of forgiving people is that every time we encounter them in the future, we're bringing up all the baggage of everything they've done that we haven't forgiven, and their action is interpreted in light of everything. And people can't escape that. Unless we free them from that. God forgave us. That's how we know what forgiveness is. It's not easy. And many of the things that we've been hurt by are deeply painful and scar-inducing. And forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean that we're not wise in the future and we let them continually abuse us over and over again. That's not what we're talking about. But keeping track of the ways they failed so we can get them later, that's not following Jesus. That's not looking like Jesus in this world. And man, does this world right now need people to look like Jesus? It needs His church to be the church and be little Jesuses. We have such an opportunity right now to stand apart from the darkness and the division and the hatred and the anger by just looking like Jesus. It's not easy. It's not simple. And in fact, it'll take sacrificing ourselves. Sacrificing our entitlement to get in the last word, our entitlement to get one up or other or get even, our entitlement to throw our opinion in, when in reality we just need to let it go on by because they've had a family member die recently or coming from that perspective, or they're scared because their business is going to be closed if we go through another round of shutdowns, or whatever crazy situation 2020 has put them in. And we just need to sometimes get over ourselves, sacrifice what we are entitled to, and just be kind. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. We're in a world that twists what is not honoring to God and not what is good and celebrates it. And it's not in vogue to stand against that. It's not in vogue to not celebrate those things. But it is in the spirit of Jesus to celebrate truth. Truth that God loves you. Truth that God dies for you. That there is right, that there is wrong. That there are things that honor God, and there are things that are unhonoring and that break His heart and should break our heart. Love always protects. Right now, there are people that are in deep need. Those who don't have a voice, those who are without jobs, or jobs are ending, or they're about to lose a home. They need protected. His people need to step up and care for them. Always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love doesn't fade. Love, as you kind of listen through these, and the last one that goes on beyond what I just read was love never fails. As you read through these, love is not some fickle feeling. They are actions or they are attitudes that you can choose to do or not to do. Because the reality is, there are people in our lives that loving them is not the natural reaction. I am that person sometimes for many people. Ask my wife on some days. loving people is not always the natural reaction we have to them. Some of them are difficult and cantankerous and push you away, and you have to fight them at times even to care for them and do what is best for them. But love is not dependent upon our feelings. But you know what? You continue to choose the right actions and attitudes, and especially if they can reciprocate in some way, those feelings will come back around. But because they're our actions and attitudes, we choose day in and day out how we're going to act. And right now, and Jesus, in his verse, when he says, we'll be known by this, is saying, guess what? If you're my disciple, you have already made that choice. Go and do it. Your actions and your attitudes towards others. Be kind. Be patient. Don't be rude. Be loving. Be Jesus to them. So I challenge you, spend some time, don't take my word for it, spend some time in 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. Read it. Read it with your kids, read it with your family, and ask how you're doing about this stuff. How are you reflecting Jesus in these ways? What do we need to work on? What do we need to go before God and ask for forgiveness for? How do we need to forgive others? Because right now, that's what the world needs. It needs his people loving like he did. And then Jesus believed that so much, he called for us to be known by that very aspect. Thank you for joining me this morning. This went longer than I expected, but I'm a pastor. I should have known better. Please consider joining us next week in person. We have just one service. It's at 9:30. We're all wearing a mask. We're doing this to love each other and care for each other and be kind to each other. If you don't personally, if you would prefer not to wear a mask, I get it. I ask that you self-sacrifice a little bit and wear it for everyone else, for them to feel comfortable, so that we are positioned in a way that we are and postured in a way that those who have lost community, like family members in this community, say that we're loving them by being conscious of what's gone on in their family. And I just ask that we all are kind and compassionate in regards to this inconvenience and this season and this time. 9:30 next week in person here. And we completely understand if you have concerns or elevated risk or you've had exposures, feel free to stay at home. Joy, she's going to be recording and putting this up online, like all the sermons going forward, so that there's something there for you. Please reach out to your neighbors. Reach out to us if you have a need. If you know of a need, communicate that. We can organize some people to make meals, to run errands, to be loving in practical ways. And let's take a step. Let's all collectively just endeavor to take a step to be more loving, to be more like Christ, to change this world so that it's exhausting because of different things than just people being mean and vicious towards each other. Love you guys. Look forward to seeing you hopefully next week. God bless and make Sunday a fun day.